Let's talk about this tragic event where a suspect by the name of Bionca Ellis went on a psychotic, murderous rampage and attacked a woman and her 3-year-old child and killed the 3-year-old child in a grocery store completely unprovoked and out of the blue. It's going to lead to some basic concepts about the hybrid threat environment and how that's going to require you to live a little bit of a hybrid lifestyle where you can enjoy the finer things in life and be a normal person, but have the ability to defend yourself on the back burner at a moment's notice. There are going to be some significant awareness issues here and some issues about getting into action and avoiding those victim pitfalls. And ultimately, we're going to talk about having a dimmer switch and an on-off switch for your aggression and your violence so that you can act immediately when things like this unfortunately happen.
Ellis is accused of randomly following Margot and Julian Wood out of a North Olmsted Giant Eagle last summer and stabbing them in the parking lot. 3-year-old Julian died from his injuries. Margot Wood took the witness stand on Wednesday. She recounted the traumatic details of the attack. She said she went to open her trunk, turned to her right, and out of nowhere she saw Ellis coming at her and her son with a knife.
I couldn't believe this was happening. It was so fast.
She said Ellis stabbed Julian in the side of the face before stabbing her.
He stabbed the back of a trunk of a car, and I got scared. But when I was pushing the car back, it fell over. And then she came at me.
Wood said she did not know or ever see or talk to Ellis before the incident.
Okay, let's talk about a few issues from this incident. The first one is that guns are not the problem. This suspect went to a thrift store, probably paid a couple bucks, and got herself a 12-inch kitchen knife or butcher knife, if you will, selecting one of many. So apparently she made the decision that day that she was going to murder the most innocent person she could find, and she succeeded, all for a couple bucks in a thrift store. So here she is in the thrift store, in the kitchen section, selecting her murder implement. Now understand that these tools are readily available to people in the hybrid threat environment that may be a threat to you. So you need to have the tools or the capability to use deadly force or at least do serious bodily injury at hand at all times. She walks into the grocery store with a knife in her hand. Nobody notices. Probably passes by dozens of people. And I can forgive a few people because they're focused on other things. But to go through an entire store, completely unaware people with a 12-inch butcher knife flashing in the light like it is, casually strolling around without notice is unforgivable. These people have lost their survival sense. Here's her first encounter with the victims. And you see her do that 180. So that's a predator behavior. They go past you, then they turn around and they pace you or follow you just like this. And you should pay attention to that. Unfortunately, the mother in this case never looked around, never developed a baseline, and did nothing other than look straight ahead as she shopped. So now that she's been bypassed once, she's been selected, the suspect here uses multitasking where she acts like she's shopping, but she really isn't. She waits around, she sees the victim, and then closes down with the victim as the victim starts to leave the store here. Again, a massive knife in her hand the whole time. And unfortunately, the mother never noticed a thing. And in this final scene here, you see the police approach the suspect who was basically unmolested. Nobody stopped her. Nobody was able to interfere in the crime and nobody was able to capture her later. But then she just basically surrendered to the police. And if you look closely, you can see the knife down by her side there. So she was perfectly able to walk away from this, which is also a sad state of affairs. Let me address a few sad facts from the mother's testimony in court. And again, I absolutely feel for this woman. As someone who has children, I can only imagine how she feels seeing her 3-year-old basically stabbed to death in front of her. It's so horrific, it's hard for even me to talk about it. One thing that does get to me is when I see crimes and violence, especially, or injury to children. And that's one of the things that has always bothered me and should bother any good person. Let's talk about some key things from the victim's testimony here. Now, first of all, you know from any of my training courses that I talk about victim situations where victims typically will relay that they didn't see it coming, they couldn't believe what was happening, and they didn't know what to do. They're also very internally focused on their fear, and they're unable to act. They're almost frozen in compliance or just frozen in a state of inaction because since they've never thought about this happening to them, they have no organized response. They can't get into that OODA loop, that observe, orient, decide, and act cycle and they never quite get to act because their body and their brain and their emotions are unable to orient to what is truly happening to them. And they have that state of disbelief, which causes a major delay in their ability to respond. And you hear the mother relay all these things. She couldn't believe it was happening. She believed that the suspect came out of nowhere, when we know that the suspect walked around a packed, busy grocery store with a 12-inch knife in her hand, casually flinging it about as she walked. We know the mother never looked around to any degree that I could determine. And in fact, the suspect not only did a 180 and followed the mother, she walked past the mother, positioned in kind of an ambush position, and then vectored to close down with her. And the mother's a good person. She never thought that anybody would ever attack her 3-year-old at a grocery store. And she exhibited some of those victim behaviors. She's made it her whole life with ever probably thinking about the fact that she might have to violently defend herself and her child. You also hear her talk about how she was so afraid, and that was her focus at the time, instead of being externally focused on solving the problem. And now this was an ambush attack. She may not have been able to stop the first initial attack, and because she lacked the awareness to do it. But once it was on, I mean, that's when you need to have that dimmer switch and on and off switch when it comes to violence. And what that means is that your level of aggression or violence needs to delicately match the situation at times. Dial it up or dial it down based on what you're experiencing, so you stay out of trouble with the law, but still can defend yourself adequately or defend others. And then you have to have that on-off switch. Now, these people in a hybrid threat environment that are criminal, that are evil or psychotic or a combination of all three, are able to get the tools to do serious bodily injury to you or kill you in an instant if you're unprepared. So you have to have that on-off switch into 100% effort to defend yourself and your loved ones with a maximum level of force. Now, if you're lucky, you can do that with your hands. If you're smart, you can do that with improvised weapons in the area pretty rapidly, or you'll carry some type of ready-made weapon on you. I don't care who you are. You cannot send people out into the world, especially your loved ones, and I'll be honest, especially females, without some type of weapon on them or the ability to get to an improvised weapon or some degree of training where they are capable of doing serious bodily injury in an instant. Now, it could be pepper spray, right? Not necessarily a deadly weapon, but extremely useful, and people typically aren't squeamish about carrying it. It could be some type of pocket knife or a fixed blade knife, which is even better, but sometimes people aren't comfortable carrying those. It could be something like a tactical pen, which isn't the best thing to have, but it's something people might carry, and it's better than nothing. Or of course, you could escalate all the way to a firearm, and the majority of states allow constitutional carry nowadays. So those are all of your options. Don't send your loved ones out into the world without having that capability to some degree, whether it's their hands, improvised weapons, or ready-made weapons they have in and around them at all times. But more important than that is the awareness to get that tool into action. And that was missing here, sadly.